The Balkan region in the southeast of the European continent, at the very edge of Europe, is considered by Europeans to be the black hole of their civilization. This huge region of 550,000 square kilometers and with a population of 50 million has been the playground for many important empires and kingdoms during its history. The border after the breakup of the Roman Empire in the 4th century AD ran exactly through the Balkans, dividing this territory in two halves. In the west, the Roman Catholic Church later prevailed. In the east, the Greek Orthodox. This would be one of the main reasons for the wars among the local population that followed. In the 15th century, Islam came with the Ottoman Empire. The Balkans became the battlefield between the Christian Austrian and Muslim Turk empires. The local inhabitants, mostly Slavs who came in the 7th century from the Far East, but also some indigenous tribes from Roman times and before, suffered and tried to survive the geopolitical games played by the great world powers. In the 19th century, the locals formed national states. Serbs, Montenegrins, Greeks, and later Bulgarians, Romanians, and Albanians established their states. Croats, Bosniaks, and Macedonians followed during the 20th century. But there were too many nations and too little space. Brutal wars broke out. The ethnic principle became the main principle. Every and each nation wanted to have all their compatriots within the borders of their state. But the territories were mixed and identities blurred. The question of national identity thus became a question of life and death. The stronger nations drew the borders, which were provisional, temporary, and unjust most of the time. Identity was often denied to those who lost a war. The question of language became more important than decent living conditions. The question of religion became more important than the monthly family income. Nowadays, 10 nations and many more minorities live in the Balkans. After the dissolution of communist Yugoslavia in the 90s, civil wars broke out again about nations' borders, religion, and language. War crimes, atrocities, even genocide were committed. While large Balkan nations were brutally trying to redraw the borders one more time, small Balkan nations, or minorities as they would say, tried to find a place for themselves and to survive. Today, Greece doesn't recognize Macedonia, Serbia doesn't recognize Kosovo, Albanians aren't comfortable with their state borders, Bosnia's borders are under constant threat from its own nations considering leaving the Union. The issues of borders and minorities are still alive and burning in the Balkans. Amid the complicated and emotional disputes over identity, language, religion, borders, history, and politics, minorities in the Balkans have tried to find their way out. This is a story about 7 of them.